Welcome into the crease. Before we get into all that good hockey action that you want to hear about, I want to give a big shout out to one of our affiliates, and that is Dubby. That is right. If you are a big energy drink fan like I am, and you need that mental focus with none of the jitters, none of the shakes, and none of that sugar and multidextrin, none of that shit, Dubby has got the energy supplements for you. They got all kinds of flavors. I've already had the Beach and Peach. I got the Calia Cream, which is the orange creamsicle flavor, sitting on my shelf right now. I use it every morning before I go to work. It is phenomenal. I cannot recommend them enough. Go to w.gg and use the code THEHOUSECALL, all caps, no spaces, THEHOUSECALL, to get 10% off your order. You can also use the link in the description of this video. That will also get you 10% off at w.gg. They also have hydration supplements. That's right, people. They don't just have caffeine stuff. They got hydration stuff. So if you're like me out in the sun playing soccer, that's why I look like I'm all red like a tomato. I got sunburned, didn't put sunscreen on. Not very smart. But you know what I did have? My hydration supplement from Dubby. So I was not dehydrated on the field, although I was getting sunburned. So go to w.gg, use the code in the description, use the link in the description, and go get yourself those caffeine and hydration supplements that you deserve. Now, my favorite topic of the day, and that is the fact that the most physical sport in the United States, probably in the world, realistically, this is a outside of like mixed martial arts, right, and boxing. This is probably one of the most violent physical sports. It takes grit, toughness. You know, you play through injuries, tons of stuff all the time, right? It takes tons of grit. So why does such a participation trophy thing like the overtime point exist? Now, I understand its creation. I understand why it became a thing, because there was this idea that you couldn't have you needed something to do a tiebreaker, right? And they didn't want people just playing for a tie. They wanted to make it more fun. And when it went to overtime, but they already solved that problem when they went to the shootout, right? Like the shootout is now your opportunity to if you don't get a point scored in overtime, you can win in a shootout. Here's the issue. Now we have made it so that the end of regulation is purely a let's play it safe, not do anything crazy, let's push it to overtime. And then even overtime is a situation where it's like, okay, we're kind of tired, things aren't going our way, let's try to play for a shootout because we like our chances going one-on-one with a goalie than we do 3-on-3 against a goalie. So we've basically created this thing where regardless of what happens, you're going to get a point, right? So that's the mentality. I believe that the overtime point is bullshit in that aspect because you have essentially allowed players to now just go, well, hey, no matter what happens, we're going to get a point and we're going to stay relevant in, you know, the playoff race. Take into consideration that the Boston Bruins, who I'm a big fan of, the New York Islanders,
who you're not a big fan of.
No, I'm not a big fan of. And the Los Angeles Kings all have 10 plus overtime losses. In fact, the Bruins and the Islanders have 15 overtime losses. If you take away the 15 points from the Islanders, they're not in the playoff. They are a 70-point team, and they are behind the Penguins, the Capitals, the Flyers, the Red Wings, and the Lightning. But right now, they're the 3 seed in the Metropolitan. The Bruins are currently in the fucking hunt for the President's Trophy with 107 points, only 3 behind the New York Rangers, right?
That 15 overtime losses in that category is ugly. You take those away, they're a 92-point team.
92-point team. Still good enough for second in the Atlantic, but it changes up everything.
Third in the Atlantic. You might no wild card.
No, they're not going to be the wild card because they still have 92. The Maple Leafs dropped to 86 or 88.
No, they've got 97.
Yeah, but they have 9 overtime losses.
Yeah, that's fair. We take away the overtime losses.
And then the Lightning dropped to 86. So it tightens up everything. It really does. You're talking instead of the Toronto Maple Leafs being 10 away from the Boston Bruins and 5 away from the Florida Panthers, now they're, it's significantly closer. They're 4 away from the Bruins. They're out of reach of the Panthers, but the Panthers go down too. So I mean, you talk about all this, and if you were to I wanted to go back a little bit, and and see
Look at the Kings, to be honest with you. Look at the Kings, and Vegas is third in that division, and St. Louis is the second wild card.
Right? And then so you look at the overtime losses last year. So the Maple Leafs
Dallas
had 11.
was a benefactor of that for sure.
Yeah.
I think Dallas had close to 15 or 16.
Yeah, the Rangers had 13, which would have just barely put them ahead of the Islanders at 94. So that wouldn't have changed much. But you start to look at it, and it's crazy. The Stars had 14. It would have put them at 94. They would have.
We couldn't win an OT last year.
The Jets would have outed them. Yeah, the Stars wouldn't have won. They wouldn't have went to the playoffs. They would have missed out, right?
Instead, we're second in the Central.
How crazy is that? They would have missed out. And then you look at
the team that went to the conference finals missed the playoffs.
Exactly. That's my point. And then you look at the Panthers. Stanley Cup team. They would have had 84. They would have been tied with the Sabres at 84. And who knows how that breaks out. I have to go back and look.
Sabres probably go to the playoffs on win-loss and head-to-head.
Maybe. I mean, that's the thing is right now the Sabres were 42, 33, and 7. The Panthers were 42, 32, and 8. So they're 42 and 40. If you get rid of the overtime loss, they're both 42 and 40. And then it's going to come down to strength of schedule, right? Head-to-head matchup maybe. And at that point, so you're talking about a situation where the Stanley Cup representative from the Eastern Conference doesn't make the Stanley Cup playoffs.
It's nuts.
Right? But that's what I'm saying. You're talking about, granted, that's a bad look for the NHL because you're talking about the Panthers obviously deserve to be there. But at the end of the day, they got there because they got awarded 8 points in overtime. And it makes zero sense for me of why we continue to allow this to happen. Right? It doesn't make any sense to me why we continue to allow this to happen. And the funny thing is that the Sabres probably, they had 91 points minus their 7. That puts them at 84. The Islanders would have had 84. The Penguins were done. So, you have 3 teams with 84 points, all vying for one playoff spot. It would have been insane.
Indeed.
And, I'm okay with it. You know what happens in baseball when people tie? And they got to figure shit out in the end of the year. They play a game.
163rd game.
Why not? Why not play a head-to-head tiebreaker?
They still do that, though, in baseball? They do the 163rd game?
I have not seen one recently, but I know that there hasn't one within the last 20-ish years.
I know the Rangers and Rays played one as recently as, I think, 2013 or 2014. It was one of those years.
So, I mean, it's still a thing if it comes down to it. It's just that it's a thing at the end of the season, right?
Even still, go head-to-head. Head-to-head.
Right? And it doesn't make any sense,
solves a
right?
lot of problems.
Plus, you get rid of the overtime point. You're no longer playing for overtime. You're trying to finish things out, which means regulation's better. Doesn't mean people score, but regulation is going to end better. It's going to end more entertaining. Then you play overtime, and it's even more intense because you got to score. You got to win. And if you don't win there, you got to go to a shootout. And it's significantly better for the game to just play it that way. I believe that wholeheartedly. I think that's how it should be. And I can understand, you're playing extra minutes, right? But you have to remember the overtime point was essentially because you played a 5-on-5 full period. That's how it started. Then we went to 4. Now we're at 3. You're no longer playing full hockey. It's a 5-minute ice time. That's enough for 2-3 shifts max, if you're lucky. Right? So what the hell is the point of an overtime? What's the point of an overtime point? There is none. We've moved so far away from it that it serves no purpose anymore. And I think it's better for hockey. It's better for the game, and it's honestly just better all around to do away with it because this shit
trophy point.
Yeah, this shit is ridiculous.
Glad you showed up point.
Yeah, right. Like literally, the Wild would have been tied with the Jets in points in 2022-2023. The playoffs would have been so much different without the overtime point. Even this year, I think it would be pretty different without the overtime point. Easy enough to look at it and say it would be different. Like right now, currently, there would be one, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, let's see, 5 teams with 70, let's see, 74 or 70, 72 to 74 points.
Yeah, I guess. Are these playoff teams or just any team?
These are all teams vying for the wild card. You would have the Buffalo Sabres would be at 74.
Sabres,
the New Jersey Devils.
Penguins. Oh, the Devils?
The Devils would be at 74. The Flyers, Capitals, and Penguins would all be at 72.
Look, guys, also that Metro division is horrible, and we'll talk about that wild card later.
Yeah. So the Penguins, the Capitals, and the Flyers are all tied at 72. They would all leapfrog the Islanders, who are currently third in the Metro, who would go down to 70. The Buffalo Sabres and New Jersey Devils would be right on the asses of the Detroit Red Wings, who are at 76 with 74 points. And the Tampa Bay Lightning would have secured the playoff spot just like they do now, because they only have 7 overtime losses, and would have moved them down to 86. So that alone,
that changes the entire face of the playoffs right now.
It really does, because you're talking the New Jersey Devils and the Sabres, who are looking at like, we don't really have a shot. We're 5 points out. Something really has to happen for the Red Wings to drop here. Would be looking at completely different, because they're at that point, they're 2 points out. And anything can happen. Right? So it changes the entire landscape of the wild card race. It changes the entire landscape of the playoffs. It changes the entire landscape of the season, getting rid of the overtime point. And there's going to be people that are going to push back on this, right? And I understand. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. However, I am not going to waver from this. The overtime point is a crock of shit. It is a participation. Congratulations, you showed up, point. You and the other team were perfectly matched for 3 periods and 60 minutes. Here's your point. That is dumb.
So, hey, you get rewarded for showing up. I've never had a job where I just got rewarded for showing up. It's a joke. This is why the NBA consistently is a better league than what's supposed to be its competitor, because they go off a win-loss. Doesn't matter how you lost, you still lost the game. It really shouldn't matter how you lose a game. A loss is a loss. I don't care if you played 60 minutes or 60 plus minutes. An L is an L at the end of the day. Let's simplify it. Why do we even need a point system at that point? If you go win-loss and you go based off of win-loss and win percentage, it makes things so much easier. Instead, we have a participation point. We have the pity point, because, we just feel so bad for those teams that had to skate 65 minutes. Shut up. That's my rant.
If we really want to be critical about this, we can either make it to where an overtime win is 3 points.
No, let's not do that.
Or we go the other direction, an overtime win is 1 point and a loss is nothing.
Or think about this. Overtime win is still 2 points. What if an overtime loss lost you a point?
Bro. Okay, see now we're getting this is some evil doctor kind of shit right here. This is like
if that's the case, I'm all for that. All for that.
Could you imagine that though? Like at the end of the year, like
an overtime loss doesn't just get you a point; it costs you one. Could you imagine the playoff races?
I mean, oh my god! I mean, the funny thing is, like, you talk about it costing you a point, like.
That could be the difference of you making the playoffs and being a lottery team.
Right. I think
I'd love that. You lost, and not only did you lose, this is going to cost you down the road? Heck yeah.
And just so we're clear, the only teams that have double-digit overtime losses and are in the playoffs are the Bruins at 15, the Islanders at 15, the Kings at 11. Every single other one, see you next year. The Kraken, done. 77 points. They're not going to catch the Golden Knights at 92. They have 13. You got the Blue Jackets and Canadians at 12. Enough said. And then we have the Flyers, Capitals, and Penguins, who are all right on the Red Wings' asses with 83 points to the Red Wings' 84. However, once again, not in the playoffs right now. So it just goes to show that most of the teams that have multiple overtime losses are not playoff teams anyway. If you have double-digit overtime losses, you're probably not. You're supposed to be a fringe playoff
Unless you're the
team.
Dallas Stars.
I mean, hell, the Boston Bruins have 15, and they're number one in the Atlantic right now, 5 points up on the Florida Panthers, who they just beat in overtime. Like,
At least they won that game.
yeah, I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Like, they're the only team out of those teams I listed who's not like a fringe wild card team right now. Like, the Kings and the Knights are separated by 1 point. That could flop. The Islanders and the Red Wings are separated by 1 point. That could flop. You know, like they're right. Like, I mean, the Penguins are 2 points. The Capitals are 2 points. The Flyers are 2 points back on. Like, they could flop at any point in time. And that's kind of what I'm saying here. Like, these are fringe playoff teams. The Bruins are the only one who are not a fringe playoff team. And even if you took all of their overtime losses away, they still would be a 2 seed in the Atlantic and not a fringe playoff team. They're definitely in the playoff hunt. But it doesn't, you know, I don't shy away from the fact that, hey, FYI, they are a 1 seed with 15 overtime losses who shouldn't be a 1 seed because of that. And this is coming from a Bruins fan. I think the overtime point is bullshit. It should go away. I don't understand why it exists.
Imagine a Bruins fan being reasonable for once.
I know, it's crazy, right?
A Bruins and Cubs fan, I might add. That
yes. I will get into my whole fandom.
There was an eclipse today, so...
There was. I'm a weird sports fandom person. It comes from everywhere I've lived, or my family's lived. My mom was born in Boston. She moved to Chicago. I grew up about an hour and a half from Wrigley. All right, so I got all the New England fandom, and then the first sports game I went to as a kid was at Wrigley Field. So, god damn it, I'm a Cubs fan. Get over it, people. It happens. Just ask Matt. He grew up in Alaska. He roots for the Yankees and the Patriots. He just in the Spurs.
And
think about that.
In Hawaii.
He's in his late 20s. He roots for all the teams that were winning.
Dude lives in Hawaii from Alaska, and he roots for teams on the East Coast.
Yep, it works out for him. We give Matt enough shit. There's no professional sports teams in Alaska, so he's allowed to inherit whatever
I give his Yankees enough crap, but I can't now because they're on a heater. But this isn't the baseball podcast. This is the crease.
The best part is Matt's not going to watch this, so he's never going to know we talked about him.
Yeah, hey, Matt, you should join us for one episode and just say what you think you know about hockey.
Just stare into the light.
Honestly, I think we should let Matt and Kyle host an episode, and we just sit back we're just a part of it, but we just hop in at times and let them go with it.
Oh my God, it'd be great. But that's all we have time for today. Our next show will be breaking down all of the playoff matchups. We cannot wait. It's going to be a great time. We look forward to recording that episode, getting all of the playoff matchups out to you, our fans, hockey fans everywhere, breaking it down and picking our winners for that series. Also, I want to give a big shout out to all of our affiliates. You can check all of them out at our website. Click on the affiliates link. That'll take you to our link tree. All of our affiliate listings are there. You can support the podcast. Check out all of our brands like Lids, sportsmemorabilia.com, Ticketmaster, or StubHub, and all the other ones we have. Be sure to like, follow, comment, and subscribe on all of our social media platforms. That's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and Spotify. That's right. You can take us on the road. Take this sultry voice with you everywhere you go. Be sure to listen to us, and we'll catch you next time here on